The U.S. election is taking up airtime on Russian state television as the ballots are still being counted.
Главный итог выборов очевиден. Это полнейшее недоверие к американской избирательной системе.
Она столь архаична, столь допотопна, что назвать ее демократичной язык не поворачивается.
4 days after Election Day, the Associated Press and other media outlets declared former Vice President Joe Biden the winner. He had garnered the 270 electoral votes needed to defeat President Trump in the race for the White House. But Russia's main television networks are taking extra effort to cast doubt on Biden's victory in the eyes of its viewers.
Официальных подведений итогов еще и не было.
Russian state networks are using the elections as an opportunity to portray American democracy as messy.
В этой катавасии уже потеряна всякая надежда на учет честного волеизъявления граждан.
State media occupies an enormous role in the Russian media landscape. In terms of informing people and informing opinions, it really does play a very large role.
There are three main themes shaping Russian public opinion about U.S. politics, such as election irregularities, the question about who calls the winner, and the stark preview of the new administration.
Голосование же по почте допускает мухлёж.
There's no apparent coordination between Russian state media and the Trump campaign. But Russian media have echoed a familiar line from the Trump campaign about election irregularities.
It's amazing how those mail-in ballots are so one-sided.
Подавляющее большинство из 64 миллионов голосов, отправленных почтой, чудесным образом оказалось за Байдена.
There's been no evidence of widespread fraud, but the Trump campaign has turned to the courts challenging absentee and mail-in voting procedures. While the newscasts appear to support Trump and not Biden, it's ultimately signaling something else to viewers.
I think that a big part of this is not really to come down on one side or the other, but to rather kind of sow doubt in people's minds about the electoral process, about the nature of democracy itself in the United States.
Там, как ты видел, все каналы топят за то, что уже выиграл Байден.
Russian anchors also have questions about who's calling the results in the U.S.
Впервые в истории президентом США станет человек, о победе которого объявили исключительно журналисты.
For over a century, U.S. presidential elections have been called by news organizations before the official results are announced. That's because it can take weeks to certify the results since each state has different rules and regulations.
NBC News now projects that Joe
News organizations base their calls on near-complete vote counts by election officials in each state. Plus, the U.S. doesn't have a National Elections Commission to announce the winner. But in Russia, there's a Central Election Commission, and so to Russian viewers, the American way of calling the election is unusual.
Who was it called by? Oh my goodness, all the networks! Wow!
Я с ним в данном случае согласен.
Biden's critical comments about Russia over the years
out of Ukraine
are repeated across different political shows. He's portrayed as someone who will not be nice or at least neutral to Russia. Biden frequently criticized Russia's foreign policy and strongly supported sanctioning Moscow for annexing Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula in 2014.
Контуры новой американской геополитики понятны. Мы занимаем почетное первое место в списке врагов.
The focus isn't just on Biden, but also people possibly being considered to join his administration.
Недолюбливать русских, хотя иногда это похоже больше на откровенную ненависть, похоже у них в крови.
That certainly does get across the idea that Joe Biden is not the favored candidate of the Kremlin, given some of the things that Biden has said about Russia.
I think the biggest threat to America right now in terms of breaking up our security and our alliances is Russia.
But Biden has also indicated a willingness to work with the Kremlin on the extension of an arms control treaty, something that Moscow has also shown interest in.
Это уже очень серьезный элемент нашего возможного взаимодействия в будущем.
Nearly 3 out of 4 Russians get their news from television, and so the message that state media broadcasts send about the future administration reaches large audiences across Russia.
Я, наверное, думаю, все-таки Трамп лучше бы для России.
Я думаю, Трамп бы нам ближе был бы.
Beyond who sits in the White House, Russia's rolling coverage of the election has a deeper message about American democracy.
Никакого отношения к демократии американские выборы не имеют.
That with its constantly changing political landscape, it isn't one to be envied.
The more time passes, the more you see the differences between the US political system and the Russian political system, which in name calls itself a democracy. Things stay very much the same in Russia. And I think the idea that they're trying to get across here is that you have this kind of vibrant democracy, but it's flawed at its roots. And so that, in the end, kind of leaves the Russian people no alternative to imagine a Russian political system that could be anything else beyond Vladimir Putin staying in power.
Нашей невероятной влиятельности.